Hey, today is awesome. I get to introduce you to my friend Maddie, who works at My Word Speech Therapy. She's actually an occupational therapist. Maddie, what do you do as an occupational therapist when you're helping kids or teens with autism?
Yes, it's the age-old question, what does OTs actually do? Our role is very, very broad, and essentially we work to help kids or adults participate in their day-to-day activities. So particularly when we're working with children with autism, that can be participating in their social environment, engaging in routines and daily activities that they're needing to do, like going to school, or things that they're wanting to do, like playing with their friends.
So in other words, making life easier.
Yeah,
Your
making
job is
life
to make life
easier
easier.
and fun.
Okay. I love it. That's really cool. So not everyone watching this has taken say their 8-year-old or their 16-year-old to OT. Like what sort of activities would say a child who's 8 years old with autism be looking at doing at an OT, and for what purpose? And same with say a 16-year-old.
Mm. So, as OTs, we are definitely driven by what the client is wanting and what their goals are, and what particularly motivates them and interests them. And if their goals are, as you said, around social skills, then we would break down exactly what with that they're wanting to do. Is it that they're wanting to be able to join in a group, or they're wanting to be able to look at getting into the workforce in the next couple of years and are needing to learn negotiation skills and working with people that they're not familiar with. So we would break down the goal into bite-sized pieces and find out exactly what skills are needing to be addressed to reach that broader goal. So yeah, it looks very different for every client that we work with. So there's never a session that's the same. But yeah, some examples, I suppose, for an 8-year-old who might be wanting to make some friends, or has trouble in the playground
Or
talking.
even make friends and then keep them for a sustained
Yeah,
period of
yeah,
time.
absolutely. One thing that I really like to work with is looking at the friendship pyramid. So looking how, from that first point of contact when you might smile at someone, when you see them in the classroom, to becoming best friends and having sleepovers every weekend, and taking the friendship up, the friendship pyramid, how we can help the child to, nurture that friendship and develop those connections so that they can increase their levels of friendship with a particular peer.
That makes sense. And so the process of going from don't know someone, they're a stranger, to I sort of know them, to I hang out with them, to they're a friend, to they're a best friend. Most most of the kids that we work with initially, they don't see that as like 5 steps. They see it as like I'm here or I'm here. Like what sort of activities, or how would you go about helping say an 8 or 10-year-old go from say here to understand I'm here and that's okay. I'll be here for a couple of months. Like how do you do that as an OT?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is around education. So identifying, what people do you know, who do you interact with on a daily basis, and looking at the different levels of the pyramid and saying, okay, what level do you think that this friend is sitting at the moment, and how can we get them to the next level? What kind of things do you need to do, so that you can take it from someone that you are playing with at school to someone that you're playing with outside of school on a regular basis.
That's really clever. Okay, so we're moving them from there to there. Great. And then you're having those conversations about, well, how do we do that? Like what would it look like? What are some practical steps we could do? Like maybe mum needs to invite, Jennifer over for a play date or whatever. Um, that makes so much sense. Okay, so let's imagine if there's a mum at home who she doesn't have access to OT because she's been sitting on a wait list for 8 months, and she's like, all right, how can I start this sort of stuff now? What would be say with that as an example? How would a mum or a dad help their child with that, even without an OT, now that you've explained that formula?
Hmm. So I suppose it would be having a conversation with your child, and seeing if that's something that they're interested in, if they are wanting to make friends, or they're wanting to make deeper connections. As social beings, it's often something that a lot of us would yearn for. So be having that conversation, maybe identifying one friend that they're wanting to put the work into that relationship, because it's a lot of hard work making friends. And yeah, I suppose identifying what you can do to help support that child. So it might be, could we set up a play date, or could we talk about how we go about finding out what that person is interested in, and talking about a common interest, and those kinds of skills as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So much of what you're saying, it's like this is covered so in depth in Secret Agent Society. It's covered so in depth in, say, the peers, friendship course for teenagers and adults. It's like, but what comes out of both those courses and what you're saying is it's not like your child just needs to do one thing. There's probably 10 different skills. And so it's like sitting down and planning with your child. Well, how are we going to do this? Like, what's the next step? And it's not like you need to go from here to here in a day. It's like, well, what's the next step? What's something we can do today? So that's really exciting. And I hope parents get something encouraging out of what you're saying. I guess with OT, I mean, what separates a good OT from a rubbish OT? I mean, like, you're obviously a good OT. How do parents pick? Like, some parents are just desperate for any OT, but it's like, how do you pick out someone who knows their stuff from someone who's just going through the motions or just doesn't really individualize? Like, how do you pick out a good OT?
That's a really good question. I think it's making sure that the work that you guys are collaborating on together to support the child is directly taking into account what the child is wanting, what motivates them, what is interesting to them, and what they enjoy doing. So making sure that the OT that you're working with is considering the child at the core of everything that they're doing with you. And I suppose as well, keeping your family's focus at the core of the supports that they're providing too. So what are your goals? What's challenging for you right now in this moment and in the longer term as well? And what things as a family or as a family unit are you guys wanting to work towards over the next few weeks, months, years? I think are the core things of a good OT.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
That
really
sounds really
family-based.
good.
Mm.
Yeah, because I'm hearing it from you. An OT shouldn't be just sticking a child on a preconceived plan, but actually going, well, what are your goals? Let's create something. Okay. I'm also hearing you say it's not just about the child. The child lives within a family. It's like, well, how does the child relate to that family and the others in their world? So I'm hearing, like, what I'm hearing you say is OT is super individualized when it's done well. Am I hearing right?
Yeah, definitely. And definitely very individualized. No goals or clients or therapy plan that we would ever look the same with any particular child or any family or any individual that we're working with. So I think you'll know you're on the mark when your OT is taking the time to get to know you and your child and your family, and keeping the goals that you have at the core of everything that you're doing in your sessions.
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. And just before we started making this short video, Maddie, you and I were talking about what's an activity that, say, kids could do with their parents that would help them build a bit more of the emotional regulation side of things, the skills of handling unknown situations, the skills of handling being in public. And you were telling me that, about maybe taking a child to a cafe. What's something that, say, a mum or a dad could do for their, say, 10, 12, 14-year-old child at a cafe that can help that child over a period of time, or a period of visits to the cafe, could help that child build their emotional regulation skills and their skills for handling life there?
Definitely. I think what we were chatting was probably more related to social skills in
Oh,
that.
okay. Let's go down that path then, the social skills.
But emotional regulation comes into everything that we do. To be able to sit and observe at a cafe, we have to be regulated emotionally as well. So, but cafes or being out and about, in public places, you get to have a lot of different models and different people that you can watch to see what they're doing. And every person is going to do things differently. We all have our quirks and things that we take with us into any social interaction. So it could be, you walk into a cafe, and as adults, we would observe the social environment and we'll think, okay, do we walk up to the counter? Are they going to come to us and are they going to sit us down at a table and then take us our order and then we go up and pay at the end? So it could be talking through all those different things that you're thinking in your head with the child and saying, hey, this is what is going internally. Maybe you could start to observe as well and tell me what you think is going on and what you think we should do, and helping them build their independence in those kind of social thinking skills in how they're interacting within that bigger environment.
That makes sense. And then what about the handling of the noise, the traffic of people going around them, like just the hecticness, the chaotic thing of being in a cafe? Like how can a parent use that environment to start to help that child to be aware that, yep, this stuff's happening around me, but I'm okay. Like how could we use that?
I think, cafes particularly can be a very stimulating environment for a lot of us. And I think, saying, well, there's a corner over in the back there. It looks nice and quiet. There's not many people around and it's away from the kitchen and away from the counter. So it might be a little bit quieter there, but also holding space for the child and letting them, if it is too much, identify that and take control and take the power for themselves and say, this isn't working for me. Let's just get a takeaway coffee and head on out somewhere where it's a bit quieter, because all that sensory stimulation is going to lead to a heightened nervous system, which is then going to lead to more difficulties regulating your emotions and participating in that environment. And do we really want to push through those things just so that we can, sit down and have a coffee? Or could we take that core goal of sitting down, having a coffee, spending some time together? Could we take it to a different environment where we're able to stay regulated and calm, and still able to obtain our end goal, where we might be sitting at a park and we're having our coffee, but we're still getting that interaction and we get our caffeine hit at the same time. So kind of thinking about what is the objective of what we're doing, and is this the best environment for that? Or could we achieve the same goals in a different environment where it's more supportive to what you're needing at the moment?
That's really clever. And simple things like ordering takeaway coffees that we plan to have here means that we've got that option of leaving if we're starting to get overwhelmed, or just not timing it for midday on a Saturday, because that's not going to work well. Like let's pick a sensible time. Okay. So, and then what might be some of the more, the questions, say a mum could ask her, prompt her child with when they're at the cafe looking around, so we can try and let that child look around and try and recognize some emotions others are having, like what state of mind are different people in, like how would a mum use that experience? What sort of questions could a mum use there?
Yeah, lots of broad, open questions like, what can you notice around you? What can you hear around you? Can you see what that person is doing at the moment? Talk me through what they're doing. What are the expressions on their face? How does it look like their body is feeling? Are they moving fast? Are they moving slow? Do you think they're really stressed from work? And just providing those pretty general promptings so that the child can lead that discovery on their own. And you might guide certain things. You might say, well, actually, it looks like he's hunched over and his head's in his hands. How do you think that might indicate that he's feeling? And kind of guiding those conversations so that the child can discover on their own with what they're seeing in the world.
That makes sense. And it's like, okay, so as an OT, you're looking for ways that mum or dad can use going to the cafe to build their social skills, to build their emotional regulation skills. They can use like the drive to work, or for their child, the drive to school, like there's so many things in real life that they can use. But it's like, I'm hearing you say when you go to a good OT or even an average one, they're going to make it about your family and your child and what their goals are and how to take those next steps. That's really helpful, Maddie. Now, guys, just being real, if you're watching this, as of today, the 6th of February, Maddie has availability for a few more students, and that's exciting. And if you want to get in touch with Maddie, Maddie, how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so our therapy clinic is based in Albury in New South Wales. It's called My Word Speech Therapy, and we have some wonderful speeches. We've got myself as an OT and some new OTs coming on board as well, which is very exciting.
That's right. And you guys do a lot of Zoom sessions as well.
Yeah, we do.
A lot of parents are hesitant. They're like, oh, Zoom for OT. They're like, no, Zoom for psych, easy. You know, my child would rather be on Zoom for psych. They're like, oh, how do you do Zoom for OT? Like, how does a parent not feel underconfident about that? Because I know what you do works.
Yeah, so I suppose, as I said, everything that we do is based around what your goals are. But what that might look like is having a conversation like you and I have today and talking through daily life situations that you might be having, or areas where you might be having trouble with, and problem solving together. And your OT might give you some suggestions and say, well, next time you go to the cafe, let's do this. Or, next time you're watching a movie, let's talk about the characters and how they're feeling and what they're doing in that social environment. So yeah, a lot of it when we're working through telehealth is capacity building. So working with the parents to be able to implement the strategies into their day-to-day routine. It wouldn't be, do half an hour of therapy every day. It's working with you to integrate strategies into what you're already doing in your daily life, and problem solving ways that you can make therapy and the strategies that we're working on functional for you and your child.
That's great. That's really helpful. And it's like, it's not like it's physiotherapy. It's OT, it's occupational therapy. Like, why would we not do it over Zoom? Especially if it means that your child can sit at home, patting their dog, drinking a glass of juice, not heightened by the drive there, and then going to all this like new place. Well, Maddie, thanks so much for hanging out with us. I'll bet there'll be a few people who get in touch with you. Just thanks for sharing your knowledge and your expertise.
Amazing. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been great to chat.